Yo!
What is up, everyone? Patrick from Guy in the Cube. And today I brought someone with me that knows a little bit about SQL Server to talk about something that's really important. Ben, why don't you tell the people who you are and what you do?
I'm Ben. I'm from Nuremberg, Germany, and I have successfully pretended since SQL Server 6.5 that I know a little something about SQL Server.
I've been away from SQL a little bit, for a little while.
We've missed you.
And I've been hearing about this capability that allows me to monitor and manage and become a proactive DBA instead of a reactive DBA called Arc. And I want to learn more about it, Ben. I want to know all the ins and outs, and I figure we could do that here in the next few minutes.
Let's do it. So people got resources everywhere because a specific service was only available in a specific cloud, or they got merged with another company, or they migrated some stuff into Azure, but not everything because they had some legacy applications, et cetera, et cetera. Everything is everywhere. And people are having a hard time to manage that. And that is what Azure Arc does. It's not an abbreviation. Do not try to make sense out of the ARC. It's an overarching thingy. It's an overarching brand. And the whole idea of Arc is get everything into one place without migrating it. It can be a migrating vehicle, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
It can just be a central control plane / looking glass. So you got all your SQL instances in AWS, in Azure, on-prem, in containers, on Linux. And it's just showing up all in Azure, despite them running somewhere entirely different.
So I can get an entire SQL estate view of everything in one single place.
That is exactly what Azure Arc does.
Okay.
It does not only do that for SQL. There's Arc-enabled Servers. All your Windows and Linux servers, they can just show up on the Azure portal, and you have that central looking glass where you can then store all the telemetry in one single container and then run combined queries above all them. Find specific resources, tag them, all these things. There's SQL Server enabled by Azure Arc, Arc-enabled Kubernetes, Arc-enabled data services allows you to run a managed instance on-prem.
Wow.
How crazy is that? But let's focus on Arc-enabled SQL Server. The baseline for that is you run a little lightweight agent on your Windows or Linux server. It's going to register with the Azure portal, and it's going to show up as a resource, and it's going to give you all these. Yes, please.
You said I got to run this agent on my SQL Server?
On that box where your SQL Server is running.
And you said it's lightweight, so I don't have to worry about it taking resources away, memory, CPU. I don't have to worry about it contending with that engine that's very hungry for resources.
Let's face it, it's an extra service. It's going to take a few resources, but it's very, very lightweight. Okay. There's different offerings that obviously take more resources than others, but just the agent alone, super lightweight. You're not going to notice it's there. And for the operating system part of the house, you can manage updates, threat detection. You can just monitor all your inventory and all that. Why am I talking about the operating system side of the house? Because it's the foundation. It's the baseline. To Arc-enable your SQL Server, you need to have your server Arc-enabled. Think of SQL Server enabled by Azure Arc as a plugin or an extension, an extra agent for your Arc-enabled server. So the server is already talking to Azure, and then it's just sending extra SQL-specific telemetry, extra monitoring data. It's going to run best practice assessments for us if we want to. That's going to take some resources, but you decide if that runs, when that runs, how that runs. So it's not just going to do all these things without you noticing or having any control over them.
Automatic patching, automatic backups, governance, performance dashboards, migrations. It does all these things. That's remarkable.
Entra authentication. You can Entra authenticate against your on-prem boxes or against your AWS box or against your Google boxes. And another pretty cool thingy here is pay-as-you-go billing. You see people that have that huge enterprise edition and you're like, well, we only need it for like a day in the month to do all that batch reporting. And then we're going to shut it down again, basically. Like, okay, cool. How about you only pay for that single day in the month?
All right. Enough of all this talking. Let's head to Ben's laptop.
I'm in the Azure portal. There's a regular resource group. There's like a key vault and everything in there that I'm using for my Entra authentication. But basically what it has is I have 4 machines in here, SQL 1, SQL 2, SQL 3, and a SQL CTP 2.1. There could be tons of more in there. I could tag them, I could filter them. And what this thing basically is, this is a reflection of one of my boxes that are actually running on premises in my basement, in all honesty. So if I click this, I will now see that resource. It is connected. It is sitting in EastUS. EastUS is where I'm storing the metadata for that. This does not tell me that this actual box sits in EastUS. It does not, because it actually sits in my basement in Germany. What's my subscription ID? What's my agent version? Yada, yada. What is the full qualified domain name of that box? So that's sql1.mycorp.onprem. What's my operating system, etc., etc. I can dive into something like monitoring insights here and see, hey, this is my CPU, this is my memory utilization on that box in basically real time. This is happening on that box right now. It's connected, no events. We can see, well, there's a very healthy CPU utilization. Well, almost 90%. Or maybe I want to shift some workloads off that box going forward if possible.
I mean, you paid for the box. Why not use the resources on the box as long as it's not pegged at 100%?
Correct. And that is one of those things where if I could, for example, now have some monitoring, even in real time, if I wanted to, against that, which of my boxes are not hitting 90, but which are constantly hitting 100%? Or is it just like, well, I got 3 boxes. 2 of them are doing nothing. Even though I paid for that box, I paid for the others as well. So I may just shift that. All right, let's not focus too much on the Windows side of the house. Think of having a SQL Server in an Azure VM. You will see 2 resources. You will have the SQL VM and the VM itself. Same concept. I'm going to go on my SQL 03 this time. And that's all the things that are happening here. When was my inventory last uploaded? When was my usage last uploaded? This thingy is connected. I could now connect it to Entra. I could check my best practice assessments. So, okay, there's a best practice assessment that just ran today. So let's see what's going on here. And it's going to give me all of these recommendations, which I could then filter by severity because, well, I don't only care about anything that's at least medium. Okay, there's some index issues. Well, I never ran a full backup. Switch server to high performance power plant. That's a great idea.
Pretty impressive. I didn't have this back in my day.
Correct. So you probably still have some old SQL servers.
I do. I have some 6.5 running out there.
Well, 6.5, I'm not going to be able to help you.
How far back does Arc support?
Arc goes back, but the thing that I was pointing out is extended security updates. Once your server runs out of your main support cycle, you can get extended security updates. And the requirement previously was that server needs to run in Azure, unless it's Arc-enabled.
Okay.
So you can get ESUs on-prem. You can enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud for that on-prem box. And it's basically going to give you the same intrusion detection and all that features that you would get on a SQL Server in the cloud. You get visibility into your databases, into your availability groups, if there are any. You could even do a live switch over or failover from the portal. You get point-in-time restores. So that's a pretty cool thing. I got an IoT DB here. I could just say, restore this thingy. I know Patrick did something wrong, and he did it on June 30th at 3:30 a.m. I don't care about when was my last full backup, when was my last differential backup. It's going to figure all that out for me. I can look into SQL-specific performance pointers here, because the other thing we saw was the Windows side of the house. This is the SQL side of the house. I could look into specific processes. I could look into what are my recent connections and all that. And another thing, another vehicle it's giving me is migration. If I go to database migration, it's going to run an assessment for me, and it's going to allow me to even do the full monitoring cutover migration process. So the first thing this assessment is going to do for me is like, okay, you could move this to a SQL MI, you could move it to an Azure VM, you could move it to a SQL DB, but SQL DB, okay, there's a warning in there. Okay, we're using Windows authentication. We can't do that in Azure SQL DB. Either we mitigate that issue and just remove those Windows accounts if we can do that, or we go to a different target. And once we figured all that out, we can just go ahead and start the migration process.
If you think about migrating before, it was a nightmare. I mean, let's be honest, the assessments you would have to do, the things you would have to look at. We had a whole documents, you got to go through this 10-page checklist to do the migration. Pretty impressive. Now, Ben, I like this. I think it's remarkable. The challenge, one of the things that I've heard about Arc, it's not easy to set this up.
It is so easy.
So I guess that means, since it's so easy, you gotta come back and spend time with me in another video and show people how easy it is to set this up.
There's easy ways in the installer, and then there's also ways that are scriptable for people that are more techie.
All right, Ben, thank you so much
Thanks
for taking
having
the time to hang out with me today. And thank you all so much for watching. If you want to learn more about SQL, Fabric, Power BI, architecture, there's probably a video on either side of me. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the queue.